Hello and welcome to Living in Chicago, the podcast where I get to interview real Chicagoans about the neighborhoods that they live, work, and play in. My name is Jake Lyons. I'll be your host. And in this episode, I interview Rick Kronenburger, who is a longtime resident of the West Loop neighborhood of Chicago, which is, if you're unfamiliar, arguably the trendiest, sort of big, most up and coming, if you can call it that anymore, although it seems like it wouldn't necessarily be up and coming anymore. It seems like it would have been fully arrived, if anything, but the multiple cranes in the sky and the continued growth in this neighborhood would tell you that even though, yes, you would think it would be fully developed, but still lots of development to go and lots of investment being made in this neighborhood still for lots of different reasons, which we get into in depth. Rick is a marketing professional and just loves the West Loop, and we have a really good conversation about it. He's full of all kinds of different stories and history, little tidbits. He seems to know every local business that there is to know. So I knew that this would be a really good conversation and that he would be an ideal person to interview about the West Loop, and it did not disappoint. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and get right into the interview, and let's hear Rick Kronenberger tell you all about what it's like to live in the West Loop neighborhood of Chicago. All right. So joined here today with Rick Kronenberger, who is a marketing professional living in the West Loop. Rick and I have been friends for a few years now because we actually attend the same church. Shout out to Soul City Church in the West Loop. And by virtue of going to this church, I have no shortage of people that I could have asked to come on for the first episode that I do on the proper West Loop neighborhood. In fact, I know for a fact I'll have probably dozens of episodes on the West Loop going forward just because there's a lot going on there, and I happen to know a lot of people who live in the West Loop. But I was excited to bring Rick on for the first episode of this because more than anybody else that I know, Rick is he is about that West Loop life. When I think of West Loop, I think of Rick. I can't think of too many people who really just stand by that neighborhood more than Rick. So Rick, that being said, thank you for coming on and sharing your expertise and your experience on the West Loop.
It helps because I've seen the evolution of the West Loop too, because I've been here.
Yeah.
And realize I don't know if I wrote that down when we first started to talk. I've been here for 12 years. Didn't even realize
Mhm.
that. I've seen quite an evolution of, of the neighborhood and just the many iterations and now the explosion of the West Loop now, which is very, very interesting.
For sure, yeah. As my role as a real estate agent, it's kind of funny. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a potential client about selling their condo, and I was looking into this condo that they bought in 2016, and I was looking at a picture of the listing from when they bought it versus a picture of the same exact building now. And so one of my favorite photographers is a guy who will combine like a picture, like an old-timey picture from, like, the 1800s to what from the same vantage point of what that same angle looks like now and the compare and contrast thing, and it might as well have been that, like, 2016, the West Loop compared to now might as well have been, like, from the 1700, like, old Western type of stuff, and versus now, it's, like, might as well be the year 4000. It's just, like and that's only 7 or 8 years.
I'm right on Madison, Jake, just west of Racine, and I face north and I look a little bit downtown, so east, but I'm staring right now from 2, 3 years ago, I'm staring at 3 or 4 high rises that have gone up in the past like 3, 4 years. So up and down Randolph and over on Fulton. And there's 2 or 3 more cranes now. And I'm on a lot of websites too that tell you about what's coming up. There's like 5 or 6 more planned and they're all huge. There's and they're all these luxury rentals too. I don't know who's renting
Yeah.
these. I've got a friend who just rented on Randolph in that new building with the orange stripes on it. And all in, she's got a two bedroom. She's paying almost $4,500. You know,
Mhm.
that's pretty par these days.
And that was what for you said a two-bed?
A two bed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, really, it's a lovely building and all these buildings now, it's like I'm older than you, Jake, but like when I first started to rent apartments, there was a party room in apartments. Now it's a party floor, and they
Mhm.
have all like amenity floors. It's just amazing.
Mhm.
And you don't really have to leave your building. And if you work from home, like I'm doing today, and you get bored in your apartment, you go down to to a work live space, and there's a gym in those buildings that you probably spend $125 for elsewhere. And
Sure.
so her $4,500, it's a lot, but they just keep on building them. And like, over in Fulton, they keep on
Hmm.
going, they keep on going north, and now they're starting to go west. They're starting to go to, the far end of Randolph and the far end of Fulton. Fascinating to me.
Yeah, so before, I guess we can before we get too down in the weeds on West Loop, let's get into a little bit about you and your origin story. What brought you to the West Loop?
I was born and raised in the West Burbs. I grew up in Hinsdale, and I worked for two or three big corporations over my lifetime. So I, was able to live elsewhere too. And I lived near Los Angeles. I lived in New York for a little bit, and I lived near Washington, D.C. a little bit. And when I had a chance to come back here, I came back here because it was my roots and my family. But I came back, and for a while, I lived out. I got talked into buying a house out in the burbs, and I'm not exactly a burb guy, but I'm glad I did it. It was a nice
Hmm.
experience. So then I had a chance to come back, and I moved up, and I lived back and forth. Like in my college years, I lived in Lincoln Park. I lived in Streeterville a little bit. And so I moved up here to Lincoln Park. I lived at Racine and Armitage, and I had kind of funny. I had a fourth floor walk up in a really old building. And it was one of, I don't know if this is a term, but it was tenement walk up where you go up a staircase, then you go down a long hall, then you go up a staircase again, long hall. It's not like,
Hmm.
how staircases go. I, I had to like, I was a kid, I had to like not bring home a lot of groceries because it was like climbing Mount Everest. But great building, great place to live downtown, great neighborhood is kind of West Lincoln Park. But then I was just kind
Yep.
of tired of Lincoln Park. I was just tired, I kind of aged myself out and I just wanted more space. So I was working with a realtor back then, and she said, why don't you come and rent over in, in to West Loop. And and back then West Loop was just starting to pop. It was just starting to pop. So I came in here and I was truly a pioneer. I'm in Block Y, which is, it was by the Thrush companies, but I graduated. I lived in Block X before, and Block X is on Racine in Washington. It's got the beautiful courtyard. So that was my first purchase in the West Loop. So I moved there, but it was funny back then when I first bought there, that was the farthest building west, basically, the nicest building west. And I remember, it's funny, when I told my parents that I moved to the West Loop, they kind of shuddered because you probably know this, Jake, like Madison Street was called Skid Row. And when my parents heard I was moving to the West Loop, they were just horrified. And I said, no,
Hmm.
it's where it's going to change. It's in the process of changing. And they said, honey, are you okay? And it's not like it was scary back then, but I was a little bit isolated because, like I said, it was the farthest. And like Racine was basically like the end of new construction. There was older construction in lofts and that, but new construction. So I moved in, and I remember moving into Block X, like I said, at Washington and Racine. And I remember my first week there, I thought, I hope I did this good. I hope I made a wise decision. And it was an extremely good call, extremely good call, because I got in on the bottom end, and I stayed there for 7 years, 8 years, and just an incredible investment. We won't go into it, but it was
Hmm.
just ever did. And then I wanted more. That was a typical kind of apartment. They're a condominium,
Hmm.
with ceilings and walls. And I wanted more of a loft feel. So I started to look around, and I came to Block Y, which is so Block X to Block Y. And I came here and I was looking at a really bad time. Every time I would look at something, it'd be gone. It's kind of like now it's like stuff went really, really quickly. And I came in to this unit. It's a really cool unit, and it's a concrete loft, but and it's got the 3/4 walls, but the people before me put in windows, and they kind of built out this 3/4 walls. So I
Hmm.
have it's just, I'm very happy with my choice. And I face north, so I have that, what do they call it, true north light, that ambient
Hmm.
light, very bright,
Hmm.
even though you're not getting direct sun, and it's great for plants. And I got a couple balconies. So it's funny because I live right on Madison Street, and Madison Street, anyone who knows the West Loop, can be very noisy, because it is a thoroughfare going east and west. And then I live on a party street. I live across from a sports bar, and and it's a bar whenever there's a concert or anything at the United Center. It's a it's a big place. Or a Hawks game, Bulls game. There's times I'll just be in my house and I'll start to giggle because it's so loud. It's so loud. But I love urban life. It really makes me
Mhm.
happy. And kind of ironically, when I lived on Block X, which is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful complex, I stared at a courtyard and they had this urban courtyard. And I moved. One of the reasons I moved, well, there were a lot of different reasons I moved, but one of the main reasons I moved, and everyone said, "Are you nuts?" I stared at this courtyard and my thought was they didn't plant the right trees because I was on the third floor. Yeah, third floor. I was staring at a jungle. I was staring at like my best friend was a squirrel, and they had put in these trees in this beautiful courtyard. If you're ever walking in the area, at the corner of Racine and Washington, there's just this gorgeous courtyard, and they built it above a garage. It's won all kinds of awards, but I
Hmm.
didn't like. I was literally staring at trees, and it was kind of creepy. And I said, I got to get
Mm.
out of here. So it was very quiet. Then I moved here, and I'm on Madison Street, and it's loud, but I love it. I
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do, like on a warm night, I go out on my balcony, which is right on Madison Street. I'm on the fourth floor. I love it on a concert night. I love it on a Bulls game. It's just exciting. It's just,
Mhm.
I'm really an urban guy. I'm really an urban guy. I love that feel. I love the noise. I love I don't love the fire engines at 3 in the morning,
Mhm.
but really prefer that. It's funny when I go to Michigan a lot, and I'll be in Michigan and it's almost too quiet, and
Sure.
I need white noise. So I have a white noise because I'm so used to urban noise. And I have friends who come and stay here, and often they'll go, "Oh my God, it's so noisy here." I said, it's it's like anything else. It's like anything else. You get used to it. You get used to the noise around you. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm pretty happy.
You just revel in the energy of it all,
Love the energy.
essentially. Yeah.
Energy. Also, one of the reasons I love about the West Loop, it is so strategically located because when I go in, when I'm working in on the loop, I walk as often as I can, even though it's also, I work right on the number 20 bus, the route. It goes ahead of my building right in front, but I walk, it's about a mile to get to the core of the loop. And it's kind of the best part about my day. Best part about my day. I just walk on Madison Street and, you know, I, I have my time, I have my earbuds and whenever I can, I walk there a lot. I've also become in the past few years, I've become a pretty big biker, road biking, and I've got two bikes. It's also very handy too. There's a dedicated bike route on Washington, where they have the guardrails and that kind of thing. And you can go straight downtown because I love to bike. That's why I said I was going to go at lunch today and bike for a little bit. I love to do the Lakefront Trail, and
Mhm.
only about 15 minutes to get down to the Lakefront Trail from here. So I love that too. So as I was saying, I'm rambling here, but the West Loop is so strategically located for everything,
Mhm.
and to the south is Pilsen. You've got the UIC and Rush Medical District, a lot over there. You've got Little Italy. You can walk to Little Italy. I went to a party there the other day and I
Mhm.
walked and in north and like, it's like what's going on at Fulton. It's now
Yeah.
become like what was the old Rush Street. It's almost gotten, it's funny. I went and got my hair cut the other night and I came out and I walked down Fulton and it was buzzing. It was absolutely buzzing, like
It always is.
hundreds of people. And wow, this is the entertainment street in town now. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
they keep on putting more and more restaurants and they're kind of
Yeah.
high. And I don't love that. There's nothing in between, but I have my little haunts that I go to elsewhere. But everything in Fulton and Randall is pretty high end there right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, you have all the great places. You got Rosemary and you got Royster and you have all that, all that interesting stuff. And it's nice for an occasion, but it's kind of
Yep.
high
And,
end.
I'm always shocked at just how many of those restaurants there are, and they're always busy, and
Yeah,
yeah, you're right, like, you're not going in there expecting to pay less than $50 a person probably, and that's before you even get to talking about drinks or anything, and it's kinda like the economics of it all always just I'm
great.
always a little flabbergasted by it. It's like, because yeah, you would think it's like, these can't be more than just kind of like a once in a while, like, big occasion kinda thing, and it's like, I mean, I guess when you live in a city of 3,000,000 people, there's enough people having big occasions every night that you can make it work, but Man, I don't know.
No, it's funny with all these new places and you see them all packed and you see the crowds. I always wonder where where were these people last year? It's like where did they go last year? Is that restaurant abandoned, closed now, or what?
Right.
Because it's on now the hip cool spot. I went to there's a place in called Lyra, and it's
Yep.
Greek, and and I remember also the West Loop is really close to Greek Town, and I've loved that. And when when there was a Greek Town, now Greek Town's kind of going away. There's down to
Mhm.
2 or 3 restaurants there, and you remember there was probably 10. And so Lyra opened up and it's Greek. And I remember going to Greek Islands or like Athena, you go there and you get, you get a beer and you get some flaming cheese and, and you get some type of Greek dish and you leave and it's $35. I brought a
Mhm.
friend Lyra for her birthday. It was $225. Not exactly Greek food as we know it, but it was good.
Mhm.
But then it turned into a scene too. It's like I said, "Okay, we gotta get out of here," because it turns into like a nightclub and that kind of thing. It's just funny. It's just
Mm.
funny. Waiting for the, a tap on the shoulder going, "Rick, you need to leave now. You're too old." It, or like knock on my door here because everyone feels like everyone tends to be hip and young and I'm kind of hip, but I'm not young.
Right.
So yeah, it's really funny. And they just keep on building and putting in this restaurant, and I'm fascinated by the build out of these restaurants too, the cost of building these things out, like how do they make their money back? I'd
Mhm.
love to look at their business plan. How do
Yeah.
you how do you know it's gonna how do you know it's gonna make it?
How
You know?
far out is their break even point and what has to happen between now and then? And yeah, even to the point of the high rise apartment buildings and things like that going up, which are pretty much just full scale luxury spa resorts at this point that you get to live in. And yeah, there's a lot of if you build it, they will come going on in the West Loop right now. I feel like especially in that Fulton Market district area where it's like, man, this is all really cool, and I really hope you guys are right because if this goes wrong, that could be pretty bad here in a few years. But I mean, so far so good. It seems that's where all a lot of tech headquarters are going. Google moving in, obviously, I think is probably fair to say probably the biggest draw to that area and the biggest sort of like vote of confidence to everybody else that in the business community and things like that. So I mean, so
Well,
far so good.
I love to read about real estate, and I love to read about business real estate, and also it's like where I'm living, residential real estate. I read a story where all the businesses, as they're coming back after COVID, they if they are going to have a nice office, they want it to be in a cool area to have their employees spots for them, to go after work, to be in a cool area. And they were saying, and you probably heard this, Jake, that the new business center is slowly moving over to Fulton Market there and kind of north there. Anyone
Yeah,
with the, and yes, they might not be taking the amount of space that they had if they were at LaSalle or Clark or, the old like Cadillac like high end streets. If you work for a bank and you work for a law firm, you're on those streets. Now everyone wants to be west of the river. And,
totally.
because I keep on warning, God, they keep on building these office buildings, are they being filled? And it seems like they're all doing pretty good, because everyone,
In that specific area, the answer is a resounding yes. They're
yeah,
doing great. But, not necessarily the case in other areas of the city, the
yeah,
state, the country, the world, I mean, the Fulton Market is
played, yeah, and then
yeah.
what do you, all those office buildings in in the core of the loop, like I said, the old like the high end office, the law firms, and yeah, it's like just take for example, what is the bank that moved into 110 North Wacker? Duh, major bank moved in.
110 Wells
Right,
Fargo?
not Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo's around there. I don't
No,
know.
in America just built at 110 North Wacker. That's where my old office was. Bank of America moved into
Oh,
this
right, right.
tiny tower. And what was interesting, they had a couple 100,000 square feet of office space spread out in the core of the loop on Clark, I think. And they abandoned all of that. So like, what do you do with all that space? And I've heard
Yeah,
stories, potential, and, so it's kind of flipped. Now everyone wants to, if they are going to work to be, they want to be in Fulton, they want to be in that area, kind of West Loop, and then live in the core of the loop, if that can happen. I don't know if those buildings can be renovated the way the loft buildings are. So yeah,
it's tough. It's really tough to do.
oh, yeah,
Really
both
expensive.
really expensive, and you have to core drill concrete for everything, for plumbing to electric to Wi-Fi to the whole
Right.
thing. Really tough, but I'm glad I'm here because it's a booming area, and like I said, I enjoyed because it's kind of the core of it's kind of the spoke, like you like the wheel. I live here, but then I can go everywhere from here. It's real easy. There's a mass
Mhm.
transit. You've got bus lines. You've got the L. It's like I if I go to a party up north now, I don't drive anymore. I don't want to drive, and I don't want to. And I want to Uber. I hop on the 22 bus. I go downtown. I hop on the
Mhm.
20. You can get really. It's really easy to go anywhere from here. And then
Mhm.
all it's like you look at a map and you look at the roads and major expressways. It's kind of like the crux of where everything kind of comes together from
No doubt.
yeah,
Yep.
90 to
Yeah, you're
90.
right there between 290 and 9094 and all that.
Really
Yeah.
good.
I mean, even, Route 66, technically, Ogden going through a little bit over there, it's a a very famous highway. Yeah, I mean, a nit that I've heard picked before about West Loop is that it can be a little challenging to get back and forth from other areas of the city, it's like you have to there's not really, like unless you are going right back and forth between the loop, which is obviously super convenient if you're doing that, but if you are coming from, like, the northwest side or something like that, you kinda have to do a couple transfers, and there's not, like, just, like, a straight shot, but, I don't know. It is what it is, like, the West Loop is still between the pink line, green line, and then blue line to the south, so, I mean, there's a lot. There's definitely and then buses, of course, so, it's maybe not the most convenient place to get to from every place in the city, but that's just kind of how it goes, there's not gonna be a train line going to every block of the city, it's just,
Yeah.
you know? So it doesn't seem like you have any issues with that.
No, no, I have a car. It's funny. I tried during COVID. I tried giving up a car, and I thought I'm going to try this. I had a lease car, and I said, I'm going to give this up because I used to go to the burbs a lot. My mom was out in the burbs. My mom died, and I didn't go to the burbs, and we used to have a house up on a lake up in Wisconsin, yeah, on the border, and I sold it to my brother, and I thought, "Well, I don't need a car." And I tried it for 2 years, and then I just realized, yeah, I could do it. It worked out, but then I realized I need a car. I need a car.
Yeah.
It's for groceries, but yeah, but I found it was very feasible with just mass transit, of course, for groceries, I had to plan accordingly, but I tried it for 2 years, but I liked it. I lived in an area where I could, if I wanted to, I could live without a car.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Time for the Real Estate Stats Corner presented by me, Jake Lyons, real estate advisor here in the Chicago area with At Properties and my website, thechicagohomesource.com. In this segment, I will provide two statistics about the West Loop neighborhood that will give you at least a pretty good idea of what people are willing to pay to live in the West Loop as of the most recent data that we have, which for me right now is January of 2024. I do this for a couple reasons, but for the most part, I might be a little biased being a real estate agent and whatnot, but I think that real estate's prices are super relevant to any conversation about any neighborhood because, after all, what really is a neighborhood without real estate? So, with that being said, the two stats that I am putting out there, and these are provided courtesy of InfoSparks and Rentometer, respectively, is that of the median sales price of two-bed condos and the median rental price of a two-bed apartment. And normally, in other episodes, if there are single detached houses in the neighborhood that I'm talking about, I will also include that stat. But if we're sticking to the proper West Loop neighborhood, it's a very dense neighborhood. It's mostly condos, very, very few actual single family houses to speak of. And so we're not going to talk about it. There's nothing to talk about there. But there are in surrounding areas and nearby neighboring neighborhoods and things like that. Yes, you can find houses, but not necessarily in the actual West. So, first stat, median sales price of two-bed condos as of January 2024 in the West Loop was, let's just go ahead and say $510,000. $509,250. So 50% sold for less, 50% sold for more. That's the median sales price, $509,250 for a two-bed condo. For a two-bed apartment in the West Loop neighborhood, the median rental monthly price of that is $3,600. And there it is. There's the real estate stats corner for the West Loop. If you are interested to see what all is on the market right now in the West Loop area or anywhere in Chicago for that matter, you can go to thechicagohomesource.com and the link for that will be in the show notes. How about just safety wise and just lifestyle wise from that point of view? How would you?
Pretty safe
uh,
is we we went through like everyone else over the past 2 years. We went through some challenging times. There were some carjackings, but it's pretty. I feel more and more safe every day, and I'm a big a big stats guy, so I always look at
Mhm,
crimes, that kind of thing, and they're all going down drastically here. There's still a handful. There's not as many carjackings anymore, but I feel pretty safe here at night, and I walk a lot. I walk a great deal. If I'm going out, if I'm going like someplace, I don't really drive. I really enjoy walking. I went to
mhm,
yeah, I told you I went to a party the other night and literally about a mile and a half. I walked back and forth and I came home, about midnight. I'm a smart urban walker at night. I
mhm.
yeah, well, I walk with intent and I don't bring a lot of money with me. So if anyone does want to take what I have, I'm going to give it to them. And so Jake, here's my urban tip of the day. I
Mhm.
carry a wallet like that. I walk the other day, I carry a burner wallet, I call it. I
Huh.
I have an old wallet and I keep an expired debit card that is like a gift card. There's no value on it. I put a couple receipts in there and I also put like $5 in there. So if I should be accosted or that kind of thing, I just hand him that wallet. And then in my back pocket, I've got my license and I got a credit card, just
Wow.
in my back pants. Yeah. And so I call it my burner wallet. And
That's pretty genius. I've never heard of that. That's a good
yeah,
idea.
in
Yeah,
case
because
because
yeah, 'cause you just never know. I mean, whether you're in the middle of the city or even in the suburbs, anything can happen at any time, really. So, I mean,
don't know. So
that's a good idea.
yeah, I'm gonna try to trademark that, sell burner wallets and like dead, dead, dead debit cards, you know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very,
Fake IDs,
yeah, it's
expired ID. Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what I
What,
do.
what would you say what's the checklist of being a smart urban walker? So you said mentioned having a burner wallet. That's the
Wa-
headline.
Walk with intent and don't it's just cliche because everyone does it. Don't don't be on your phone, be
Okay.
very cognizant of everything around you and just walk with intent. And a lot of times that seems to just do it. And I tend to walk very fast and I've never
Mhm.
had every once in a while, there might be a homeless incident, but that's not, it's not anything that's caused me any trial or tribulation. But yeah, just walk with intent and don't be on your phone.
Yeah. The don't be on your phone part is interesting. I've heard different takes on that to where maybe like it is good to be on the phone because maybe like if the person thinks that, you know, that the potential victim is talking to somebody that maybe they'd be less likely to, you know, that
Well, I
somebody else is immediately going to know that they've been assaulted or whatever,
never
it
thought
might
about it.
deter them.
Yeah, but
But
I mean, so like basically the West Loop, I think we've done pretty well compared to the other crimes in the city. I don't know what it was. I don't know
mhm,
anyone challenge or, there's not a lot of I don't know if the buildings are there's like I read stuff on there are a couple websites or a couple of Facebook pages I follow in the West Loop and you read that there's a robbery or that kind of thing or breaking and entering. But I think it's just living in the city. It's like, I've
mhm,
lived I've lived and spent time in some pretty large places. It's always kind of the same. You just got to be careful.
mhm, sure,
Cognizant moving around. And I live in a pretty safe building. You got to get through two doors to get in. But these days with Uber drivers and that kind of thing, I think there's always, you know, fears that doors are open and not Uber drivers, like like Amazon, that kind of thing. There's always the door
mm,
wide open, with people kind of trailing behind them. But we haven't had really many problems in my building here. So no, I
mhm,
feel pretty safe in the hood here.
yeah. So in the 12 years you've lived there, what would you say have been maybe just a handful of sort of the seminal moments that have happened to the neighborhood that have helped it get to the point that it is now? Like we talked about Google moving in. I would assume that would be a big one.
And I think,
What are some things that maybe we wouldn't necessarily think of right away?
well, I think everyone thinks of when they think of the West Loop, well, like way before me was Oprah, which is now the McDonald's
Mm,
building. And I actually watched them tear down Oprah studio. She kind of like made the West Loop famous. She bought that old armory and it had her studio there. And then when she closed up her show, she sold to McDonald's. I watched them tear down. That was interesting. I went over there a couple days and watched them tear down her studio, and you saw things in her studio
mm,
and her famous office. And then of course McDonald's moved in there, and that's a huge building. That's a block by a block, and I think that's a big moment. And I would say just I think once McDonald's moved in and Google moved in, I think then all of the other businesses started to look at like, why are they moving here? What is their motivation to move here? And do we want to be where the cool kids are? And more, it's interesting too, Fulton and there, all of the showrooms that used to be at the Merchandise Mart, a lot of the office furniture showrooms, they're starting to move over there because they want to be in like the cool hip area. And the Mart is almost going back to offices, where it was all of the furniture showrooms, the design showrooms, and more of them, three or four, five really big showrooms have moved over into Fulton. And so I think once you had a couple big businesses come in, I think once that kind of flow started, the flow just got bigger. I've even heard rumors. I heard from a friend of mine that Chase is possibly looking to downsize because they don't need all that space. Of course, they don't have you know, the whole building on Madison, but I've heard that they want to be in a more cool area. And I've heard that they have been looking over here for the right lease. I don't know if that's true, but kind of makes sense. If Bank of America moved, Wells Fargo moved, some of the larger banks have moved over here. Why wouldn't Chase, and
mhm.
take a bunch of floors in one of these large buildings they're building? And also all of the office component is moving kind of north of Fulton, was that warehouse area. They're over by the brewery. What's the Irish brewery? Guinness. There's a
Oh,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
there's a lot of offices going in there, and rumor has it, I don't know if it's true, that Chase might be moving there. So it's just an
Okay.
every neighborhood. And what's interesting, Jake, is the West Loop just keeps on going west. And
Right.
you don't call it West Loop, but just necessarily because I'm just east of Ashland, and I'm kind of like a few blocks west of Racine, and I'm just kind of east of Ashland. For years, if like once you hit Ashland, it was kind of a no man's land. It's
Mhm,
it's so interesting now when I go to a concert or I go to a sports game, I walk to the United Center. And I don't
mhm.
know if the old days you didn't walk to the United Center. You just didn't do that. And it wasn't really safe. Now it's like the streets are just loaded. Be because United Center, that's also one more perk of living in the West Loop. You're literally 1 mile from United Center, less than a mile. Very, very walkable. And you don't have to pay for parking. And, it's just kind of a nice walk, going down there if you're going to a game or a concert. So yeah, the West Loop. In fact, my grocery store, I go to Pete's Market. I love Pete's. That's
Mm.
also one of the greatest things about the West Loop. Pete's Market is down at Madison and God, what is that street? Western, and you're kind of on
Oh,
the
okay.
but Pete's Market down there is just fabulous. Anyone who's not been to a Pete's Market has got to go to a Pete's Market because
Hmm.
there actually was a Pete, and Pete was a produce guy from way back then. I don't know if his dad was a produce guy. So anytime you go into a Pete's, you come into a store that visually attacks you with the most beautiful produce, like aisles and aisles and aisles of beautifully merchandised produce, fresh, and it's the only place to go. It's the only place to go if you want really good. Be, because Mariano's is Mariano's. They've just lost everything. They've lost everything that made them good. And now I've heard they're about to sell this store, I guess, to Piggly Wiggly, which is a chain that they own or that's going to buy them. And in Whole Foods, I don't really love the Whole Foods here. It's a little small, but pizza's
Mm.
fabulous. So I do take my car down to Pete's, so because I tend to
Right.
stock. Yeah, but you got to go to Pete's just for the produce. That's just spectacular.
Okay. Yeah, good to know. I've never but that's one of the few grocery chains in the area that I've never actually set foot in, so I'll have to
They
check that out.
and they train their staff really well. They're extremely good at what they do. Their staff is really, really diligent about service, and they're just really nice people. And I've talked to the staff. I've gotten to know a lot of the staffers, and they said they really like Pete's. They worked at other grocery chains, and they just really like them the way they treat their employees, and that's important to me too. To
Totally.
to go with to go with a store or vendor that treats their employees good. So yeah,
Yeah.
but people, well, and that's right on Madison and Western. So right after United Center, about 3, 4 blocks. And then you're kind of on the edge of the West Loop but it keeps on moving west. It keeps, it's past the Excellent, all kinds of construction. There's a lot of private homes there. And yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. Along those lines, what are some of the local eclectic shops and restaurants that you don't have to pay $100 a person to enjoy and things like that in your area? Places that maybe you're comfortable talking about without having to share too many of them from people listening to the show.
absolutely. Absolutely. Some of my favorites are, if I'm not going for a nice dinner over in Fulton Randolph, there's a great place called Tally Thai, and it's right at Western, or it's right in Madison and Racine. And it's one of those places, they have excellent Thai food, but also have amazing sushi. And normally I'm up to school, do one thing well. Don't try to do both. It's like, don't try to sell like one weird product and then a completely different product. They do it so well. So if I want really good Thai, and it's called Tala, Talay, and that's both Thai and sushi. Beautiful sushi too. I'm kind of a sushi snob. I like
Hmm.
when I like rolls. It's just stunning, and it's a great carryout place. That's right there, and also kind of that area too. There's a little. I like healthy bar food. I'm kind of a healthy eater, and when I go out, I still want to enjoy the ambiance of a bar, but I don't
Hmm.
want to see. I have my moments where I agree. See, but there's a place called Crossroads, and that's it's just right east of Madison and Racine. Is a bar. It's, a big sports bar when games are there, but really good food, really good sandwiches, burgers. What else? There's Viaggio, which is a kind of a mid-scale, upscale Italian. It's a little bit of a scene at the bar, but that's a really not a cheap, not a cheap place to go, but it's not expensive, not as expensive of Randolph or Fulton. What else? Trying to think on Madison Street. There's a couple just small little places. There's great pizza in the area. We've got Nancy's on Washington Street, which is, for me, it's the best pizza out there. Just incredibly good crust. Nancy's is there. Then we have Randolph. There is Malnati's, for deep dish when you need that deep dish
Hmm.
fix. And yeah,
When you got the people coming in from out of town who want to do the whole Chicago thing, go to Lou's. Yeah.
that's a really nice, Lou's to eat into or else carry out. And what else? Everything else is pretty, there's, there's a few fun bars here. Every once in a while, you just want a towny bar that smells like a bar. I love bars
Yeah.
that smell like a bar. And there's a place, Third Rail. It's right, kind of everything kind of is right at kind of Racine and Madison. There's a place called Third Rail. It's just a tavern bar that you you can still get a drink for $5, and
Mhm.
that's fun. And up there, it's really funny. There's a Jets Pizza, and I had to be introduced to that Detroit style pizza. And Jets is brilliant. You can buy Jets by the slice, and you don't have to order it. So it's pretty tough. If you've been out and you pass Jets on the way home, pretty tough not to stop, because you can get a slice of pizza square, and it's that Detroit style pizza, and really good. It's really good. And
Yeah.
it's by the
Nice.
win, and you're out in like a minute or two.
Yeah. That, ladies and gentlemen, or that's why I was excited to have Rick on. I knew he would deliver the goods. He's just all about the West Loop, man. I know we're running up on time. I just have a couple more quick questions for you. What is a challenge? Are you good?
Yeah, it's good. This has gone incredibly quick.
I know, right? Yeah, it's like how we've been talking for 45 minutes already. It's crazy. What are some challenges, or maybe just one challenge that you think the West Loop is currently facing?
I think the challenge for the West Loop, anyone who wants to buy in the West Loop, there's not a lot of product. You probably know that.
Indeed.
It's like everything they're building are these luxury apartment buildings, and they're just expensive. And in all of the condos they're building are they're trying to get families to stay here. In all the condos that they're building, there's a condo building that just opened up at May in Washington. The top floor is $5 million. It
Hmm.
is for half the floor. It's not even a full floor. All of the condos are everything that's old. There's not a lot on the market, and everything that's new is just incredibly expensive. That's the only challenge. There's not a lot of like kind of mid-price condos right now. It's It's the only
Yeah.
challenge. It's great. I hate to be brash but that's why I'm thrilled that I'm in my place because at some point I'm not on a high end condo, but I'm in a nice condo. I'm a score on this place because there's
Mhm.
nothing in between. There's a lot of smaller condos and there's a lot of these major condos. So I'm really glad I'm here. But I think that for anyone trying to move here, it's kind of tough. One of my favorite buildings, Jake, and you probably know it, 1040 West Adams. It's a really long building. It's a loft building from Aberdeen almost up to Mo- Morgan. It's just a huge old loft conversion, and it's kind of like the best loft building I've ever seen. Kind of a reno. It's like when they bring it to a warehouse or from a warehouse to a building,
Mhm.
like residential. I've got a friend who's trying to move in that building and she's really having a challenge. And there's a lot of units in that building, but it's such a popular building because it's really a beautiful loft building. And they just did an amazing job. A lot of times, a lot of those loft developers don't do great jobs. There's no problems
Yeah.
in it. They just did it well. And she's trying to move into this building and she just keeps on getting bid out. And now because interest rates were a little higher, people are moving out
Mhm.
unless they're moving to the burbs. But that is a superb building. Anyone want to move to the West Loop if you're willing to look and that 1020 West Adams, 1040 West, just an incredible building. Have you been in there, Jake?
I'm not I'm sure I have at some point. I've been in pretty much every except for maybe, like, the brand new, basically still being built. Like, if it's just opened within the last year or 2, maybe I haven't been in there, but for the most part, I've been in pretty much every building.
Big building. I'm doing it for an ad for a building, for the building, but I don't even have any interest in it except I have friends there. That's an awesome loft building. It's
Yeah.
about 100 years old and wood beams and brick walls. It's kind of like a
Yep.
barrel ad, I say.
Oh, what?
Crate and barrel ad. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
and then look, urban chill, but that's a really nice building.
There's a lot of that in the West Loop and Fulton Market, all those kind of converted industrial loft, the things that all the Gen Zers and millennials like to, put on Instagram, like you were saying, all the exposed brick, the wood beams, that some every building probably has some kind of old like broiler from the 1800s that is the size of like a locomotive that they keep in there just for the ambiance of it, so just different little things like that.
Hey, Jake, one more thing. I'm talking about the West Loop. One thing that's really important for people who well, might be looking at it's very dog friendly. A lot of dogs. There are almost
Yes.
dogs is, and they're people. And I'm on Madison, just one block south of me is a really nice park called Skinner. And it's
Mhm.
a huge park. It's about a 3 block by 3 or 4 blocks like long and about 2 blocks wide. Very much a dog park. It's really a fun park. And there's two dedicated dog parks also in the West Loop that's fenced in and it's a good people, it's a good place for people to be social with their dogs and meet people, but it's very
Mhm.
dog friendly. You just got to get to them. There's not a lot of green and like Madison and the streets, but like you just go a block south and there's a lot of green.
Yeah, that's a great call out. Yeah, you're right. Very, very dog friendly. You can't drive around in the West Loop and not see a dozen people walking dogs at all times. Yeah,
And like in
100%.
just look outside and you see everyone's out with their dog in the morning. And so
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I guess this bottom line, why would somebody want to move to Chicago in general, and then within that umbrella, why do you think somebody should want to move to the West Loop? Like, what would be kind of the ideal person?
So as I think I am still a lot of people like to bash this town, and I am still the greatest fan. I love it here. I live it here. I have lived elsewhere, and I think it's the most livable place I've ever lived. And when I say livable, I mean it's somewhat affordable. It's somewhat affordable. It's not Manhattan. It's not
Right.
LA. You know,
Affordability is relative.
yeah, right, exactly. It's
Yeah.
somewhat, but I just think it's a town that is extremely resilient. And also, it's like anyone who lives here too. It's like, yeah, for the past month, we haven't seen the sun. But as soon as it gets nice here, I just rejoice in the happiness of people enjoying the town. They really appreciate when it's nice here. Like, Jake, the summer here is spectacular. It's just spectacular.
Mhm.
All the between all the concerts and, the street fairs, the Taste of Randolph, Union Park, which is just west of me, they have all these music festivals, and Riot Fest is just to the south here. It's really a fun place to live. And I love the lakefront, and I'm close enough to, I do a lot of things on the water with friends. And it's just, I think it's one of the most resilient places. And I like that I like that it's kind of liberal. I tend to lean liberal, and it's a liberal place. And I'm just a huge fan. And so just narrowing down, and they're going to the West Loop. If you're looking for a lot of things to do and you want proximity to a lot of things to do, you couldn't ask for a better neighborhood. Because like I said, it's kind of like a wheel and all the spokes. You're in the middle. You're it's like you can go any place you want from here. I have friends who live like way north, live up in Lakeview or Edgewater. Great up there in Andersonville. It's great up there, but it's so far and it's so hard to get to. And like I love Anderson. I love Clark Street. I love that neighborhood, but it's too hard to get to. It's like, to get up there, it's such a and and yet I love it there. We're here, you're more in proximity to so many different neighborhoods. Like I said, literally to the south, Pilsen to the southwest, the Corridor Loop downtown. It's like everything. And then if you want to go, to Logan Square, Hu- Hughie Village, everything is right here.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, well, that's pretty much all I have. Was there anything that you wanted to get to that maybe I should have asked, or anything that you would like to anything else that maybe you would like to promote, either yourself, anything you have going on, or maybe some organizations or anything, if not, no big deal, but
I'd like to promote. There's a little gift store on Madison Street called Fig Tree, and if you need a quick gift, if you need the craziest birthday cards, it's just the greatest place. If you need a host gift, that kind of thing, and it's owned by a lady by the name of Ann, and I'm a big fan of her because she greets everyone and she's very good at what she does and she has fun stuff. And she's also, Jake, has been hugely generous with our church for the Christmas store for the
okay.
migrant app. He's given probably $1,000 or two of product, and
Mhm.
just because, cares about the neighborhood, and she's extremely generous and just a fun lady. So it's Fig Tree. It's like you need a quick host gift, or just crazy cards or like a baby gift. She has all of it. I'm a huge fan of Anne.
Nice. Great call out. I'll put her in the show notes. I'll put as many of the businesses that we've mentioned in this episode as possible. I'll put links to them in the show notes for the show. So,
Yeah.
Rick, thank you so much. This was worth the wait. You did not disappoint.
Thank
I
you,
know
buddy.
our audience will get a lot out of your West Loop knowledge, and yeah, that's all I got. Thank you so much.
Bye, Jake.